Welcome back to the Hiding for Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Tawan.
and today we're reviewing Alien, released in 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, and written by Dan O'Bannon. Tawan, can you give the people the plot summary?
In deep space, the crew of the commercial starship Nostromo is awakened from their cryo-sleep capsules halfway through their journey home to investigate a distress call from an alien vessel. The terror begins when the crew encounters a nest of eggs inside the alien ship. An organism from inside an egg leaps out and attaches itself to one of the crew, causing him to fall into a coma.
So, Alien. This is one of the franchises I've been waiting for us to cover. Like, I love these movies. Well, I say I love these movies. I've only seen this one, the fourth one, and the Alien versus Predator. Well, the first Alien versus Predator, and I've seen the two prequel movies. But I don't know. This is a series that has longevity, and that's really iconic. Like this movie itself is iconic. That has like a bunch of iconic scenes, good twists. Like this is a good, like, fun movie, and from the direction to the action to the suspense, like, it's a whole hour and some minutes before we even see the alien. So, and I don't know, I just felt intrigued the entire time. So that's me. But what about you, Tuan? What are your thoughts on the Alien movie?
Yeah, this is one of those films that just has held up really good over time. I rewatched it before we did this episode. I haven't seen it in a while actually, and even while watching it, I'm just I was just like, damn, this holds up so good. From the effects, the music still holds up good, the story beats and everything. Even though I knew what was coming, everything was still like I was watching it for the first time almost. So um, that's definitely a big plus for this movie. And kind of like what Mark was mentioning as well, the fact that we don't even get the aliens until an hour into the movie just shows you how good they Ridley Scott and with the direction and also the writers were with crafting the story of Alien and not making it so much like a monster movie and more more sci-fi, but also in that realm of what is going to what's going to happen next. Are we, because you probably people probably didn't even know if they were going to get what we eventually got towards the end of the film with the xenomorph and stuff, and going through that whole process of figuring it out with the crew. It was just a really good, and that's another thing I do want to mention is just the crew in general. I think they
Oh yes, the
yeah
crew
yeah
makes or break this movie
it
simply
really
because,
does.
again, we don't get an alien until an hour into the movie. So we spend a good portion of the movie with the crew, and if the crew wasn't good, then the whole
Yeah,
movie falls apart.
and they did really good with doing the writing for the crew. It felt like they were actually working with each other for a long while, and we're kind of work friends at this point, and it didn't feel unnatural. All the conversations and stuff felt natural, all the interactions with them felt natural. So I like that portion a lot because like Mark mentioned, it lives or die by if they can keep us engaged until we actually get to um, what's causing the eventual disturbance with everything happening. So that's a really good.
But not only that, it's just they're good, and they draw you in with the performances, and how they write the crew.
Mhm.
So when they eventually start being picked off one by one, you kind of feel something.
Definitely, yeah, and they kept that up really good, and I will say I like that, and it's still, like I mentioned earlier, like it still like holds up even till today, where I feel it's still like I felt like empathetic to what was happening to them like during the story and everything, and I feel like sometimes when I'm rewatching a movie, depending on, of course, like depending on the movie, I may not be as invested when rewatching it. It may just, be put on for like background content, or I may like try to start checking my phone or something during it. But with this one, like when I was rewatching it, like I was like locked in while rewatching it, and that's just gonna show how like good it like holds up, to just be locked in, rewatching like older movie. So yeah, definitely stands the test of times, and I'm glad we're finally covering it as well.
I just go back because you messaged me earlier when you were watching the movie, and you're like, "It's crazy how we're closer in date
Oh
to where
yeah,
this movie is, the kind of movie is set than we were when the movie first came out,"
yep,
which is which is
yeah, because it took place in
insane.
2037.
Yes, and we're I, I don't know. The movie is, it's a good movie, and like you said, it stands the test of time, and it's just iconic. Some of those I quote unquote iconic movies you watch, and it's just like, okay, I don't get it. I don't get how it became iconic because you know we come from a point where we see a bunch of movies who's done several of the same things with a bigger budget and better CGI and better practical effects. But then you watch a movie like this, and it's just like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I get why this movie like kicked off the craze it did. So,
Yeah,
like, I'm excited because we're jumping into the Alien franchise. And before we really go off into this movie, I want to stress again. I mean, I said it in our Hatton horror roundtable, but we are only covering the mainline Alien movies. We are not going to be covering Alien versus Predator because that's a whole. Because you guys know me by now. If we're going to do Alien versus Predator, we're also going to have to do the Predator, and I don't think any of my co-hosts want to sit through any of that because I definitely don't want to sit through any of that. So we might circle back around to the Predator
I like the Predator movie.
later.
So speak for yourself.
Oh my, even Predator 2? Even Predators?
I like Camp.
Okay, you do that. You enjoy
Also,
that.
the latest Predator movie was one of the best.
Prey was amazing. It's up there with me with Predators, but everything in between those two movies, it's a pass. And like, I will be passing on all movies except for two, so I kind of don't want to do that. So, you know, let's not. So, but we've given our overall thoughts on the movie, and I don't know. I know you're a directing buff. Do you have any like thoughts on like the direction, how the movie was like set, the sound design? Because I love the sound design. I love how there wasn't really an overall score. It was quiet when it needed to be, and then it had to score when it was needed. Like I'm not a big like score person, but like little things like that really like draws me in. It kind of adds to the atmosphere to me for
I
me.
I agree, but honestly, with this movie, when I was rewatching it, I was more so paying attention to like the set design. I'm like, damn, this shit looks good.
Yes, it looks so good, and it's photographed so well.
Like I was like, damn, like this set like looks so good for, especially for like the time when it was done. Like it looks really good, and like you see a lot of films that like try to do that type of like sci-fi like alien type of thing, and they still kind of base a lot of their stuff off of this movie. Like
Hmm.
as rewatching, you can kind of tell like a lot of stuff that is done in some of these other movies they're using within this one as well, and um, it's very interesting to see because like obviously it looks older just because of the cameras and stuff, but
Hmm.
everything else that's in it, like the set design and stuff, it looks really good. And um, considering the budget that these movies are on, it's like something's not adding up these days.
Honestly, but I feel like I doing our podcast and do knowing about like the production costs and stuff of like Halloween and Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like the people who had like the less money were able to pull out some of like some good looking products on like a small budget.
Yeah.
And it's like they kind of had to because they had to work with what they had. Like I don't know, this movie looks great. Did you watch the version on Hulu?
No, I watched it on YouTube.
Okay, I watched them both. 'Cause I was wondering if like the YouTube version would be like
Was
and,
the
and,
Hulu the uncut version?
uh, I would just I was thinking since it was on YouTube, it might be like a cut version that they made for television. Sometimes when they have to like put the movie on TV, they might add extra scenes or take away certain scenes. Because when you watch Halloween, the original one on like the TV version during the Halloween season, they have like a whole different version than the other version that you will find on streaming because they had to add extra scenes to get the TV runtime. That's
No,
when they add all
it
this
was
stuff
pretty.
about like
It was pretty decent. Well, at least for what I remembered of Alien, it was the
it's.
same.
I think both versions are um the theatrical cut. I know there's a theatrical cut and a director's cut, but I think the
Mhm.
most widely one is the theatrical cut. So I think that was the difference I was looking for, but the director's cut wasn't there. But like you were saying, like the set design was amazing. The directing was amazing.
Mhm.
Like certain things were photographed, the way that he set certain scenes. Like, well, let's just go there. That leads into the scene section because it's a scene, but it's like but it's also one of my favorite kills, and that's when Brett gets killed when he's looking for the cat,
Yeah.
and like you don't really see Brett get killed, but you see the cat's reaction,
Mhm.
and you kind of see the shadow of Brett being killed. I love that scene. It's so understated, but it's so effective and it works so well.
I think for me, one of my favorite scenes still is when we find out Ash is an android.
It's a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot.
That scene is so good. Like that whole that whole scenario is so good because like nothing up until that point would have had me believe that he was an android, and it was just so like it was just one of those things where yeah, we're in the future. We probably have those, but no, who would have thought that somebody on the crew, especially when we just mentioned how good the crew's like relationships were with each other, as far as like being employees and like work friends
Well,
in a
see,
sense.
say you say that, but they kind of drop the line that Ash isn't the normal science person.
Yeah,
Like he was a last minute replacement that was like forced on them. So that's kind of a hint that like he doesn't jive well with the rest of the crew because he's not part of the crew per se. But like
true.
also like going into it, I remember that Ash is the android, but I forgot like the sequence of events that exposed him to be the android. And when it was happening, I was like, "Oh shit, this is it!" And like that whole scene, like you said, was amazing.
Yeah, that came really good, and I definitely I remember when I saw this like when I was younger, I thought that like I don't think I understood that he was an android at first. I thought that he like got infected or something about one of the aliens because he was a scientist. And
Oh
like they were
my!
taking over his bed, like they were taking over his body, but I was like, oh, he's just a robot. But
And
but looking
I
effects on that
love
shit, he looks so good.
right again and given the time, like come on, that shit looked better than what they did with the Terminator when Arnold Schwarzenegger took off his face to fix his eyeball. But I was all for Parker, like, no, we gotta burn this bitch down to make sure this android is dead. Like
Oh yeah,
we ain't taking no chances. Like, yep, yes. But also speaking of Parker, a scene that I hate, and I keep mixing my favorite scenes and kills because it's just these two. But a scene that I hate is Parker's kill because
oh
Parker
my
didn't have to
god,
die.
he
Because
really
why
didn't.
the fuck did Lambert just stand there?
Get out of the way! Get out of the way, man! It's gonna kill us!
Like, what are
That was
you
a
here
fight
for?
club!
You're
Get
just
out of the
standing
way!
there. You're not trying to assist in any way. Like, I get that you're afraid, but bitch, this is fight or flight. You need to fight, flight, do something. Don't just stand there. And it's Parker could have survived. She could have survived. At least one of them could have survived, and she just didn't stand there frozen, letting this fucking thing lick her face. Like that scene pissed me off.
Yeah, she pissed me. Yeah, she definitely pissed me off because yeah, he did not have to die, and it's just like he had to die saving. Let me stop. um,
I know what you mean. I see you. I see you because I thought the same thing. And it brings us back. But
but
also,
she could. I don't. But it's like, it's like one of those things where yes, I understand the situation. I understand we're shell shocked right now. But like, girl, dip, like dodge, dive, or something. Like he got the flamethrower in his hand. Like, come on.
and then of course, the iconic chest burster scene.
Mm,
Because again,
it hits every
you're
time.
spending an hour with these people, but then you spent like a good 20 minutes with the face hugger on his face, and then it's finally off, and they're all like relaxed, they're eating.
Some food. I can dig it, man. I'm telling you, I've eaten worse food than this, but then I taste it's better, you know what I'm saying? The other one over there.
You pound down the stuff like this.
Listen, I'd rather be eating something else, but right now I'm sticking to food. You just know you know what it's made of. No, man.
Food, and then he starts convulsing, and then boom, his shit like took me the fuck out. I was like, again, knowing that it was coming because I've seen the movie before, it still gets me every time. Like that's a great iconic scene for a reason.
It it's so crazy. Like every time that I see that, I'm like, how the fuck did they do that? Every time, it is like I know how they did it, like watching behind the scenes and all that stuff. But it's like, how the fuck did they do that, bro? Like, it always like looks great, and kind of in relation to that, like another scene that literally like makes my heart drop to my ass is when they go back to the lab to see Kane and you don't see the face hugger on him anymore and you're like, oh hell no. It's like, where did it go? Oh my god, like whenever you get to that scene and especially like showing somebody for the first time, like they're just so like fucking surprised because they're like, where the fuck did it go? Because like nobody else, like obviously they didn't know what anything else like was going on there. Um, so that was a good one.
I mean, the red flag number one is Ash. Yeah, don't kill it. It's for science. Excuse me. Fuck science at this point. I'm
No,
sorry.
yeah, definitely. And even with that, um, one more scene that pissed me off was when Ripley was trying to follow the fucking protocol of what to do, and they were like, "No, we got to get him back." Like,
McCain.
Something has attached itself to him. We have to get him to the infirmary right away.
What kind of thing? I need a clear definition.
An organism. Open the hatch.
Wait a minute. If we let it in, the ship could be infected. You know the quarantine procedure.
24 hours for decontamination.
It could die in 24 hours. Open the hatch.
Listen to me. If we break quarantine, we could all die.
oh, right, piss me right off every time. Because what do you mean we're bringing an unidentified object on board that's attached itself to this man's face through his fucking helmet? What do you mean we're bringing that on board? No, all of y'all gotta stay out. I'm sorry. Shit, I'm putting this bitch on lockdown.
And Science 101 is you do not expose everyone to a foreign agent that you're supposed to. This is why we have quarantine. This is why. Like, legit, if they would have followed, if Ash hadn't opened the door, only the people outside with him would have died. Everyone else would have been fine. Because we would have got the fuck out once the birth had started to happen.
Man,
But
that
that's.
pissed me right off every time.
Mm-hmm. Any other scenes?
Um. Oh, last one when Ripley is talking to Mother, and she sees the message that Mother left for Ash, and it's just like you could just like see the immediate like despair in her face, like reading that off. Like it's like and the music adds to it also, and then you just see Ash like sitting out the corner of her too, like while she's reading it. That's a good scene.
What was it? What did the message say?
Basically,
It,
I forget what it
they
said
were they were like
exactly.
rerouted or something, right?
Yeah, I think it said they were rerouted, and like the specimen was like the only thing that they were cared about, and then all crew expendable. Insane.
That's wild. So they wanted an alien, but they can't control, but they have no idea about. But fuck everybody. Let's bring this back home to Earth. We can set this thing loose. That's dumb. The dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Nah, exactly.
Wow. And the company isn't named in this movie, but we do find out in the other movies that's called Wayland.
Yutani.
Yep. So they definitely come back. But are there any kills that you want to talk about?
I feel like we kind of mentioned most of them. Really, it's just the main one for me is always gonna be the chest burster. Like nothing like I know we bring up like iconic moments and like horror, but like nothing almost like tops that. Like especially just getting the reactions from them as well, which we'll talk about more in like the trivia and fun facts. But just the reactions from them and like how they went about like insane.
That ending, where Ripley and the alien, how she was just like slowly putting the suit on,
Hmm.
getting ready. I was like, what the fuck is the alien doing? Because this bitch is going really slow with this suit, and the alien just chilling, I guess. So whatever. Um, Dallas's kill also iconic. Him and the air shaft.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the characters. What are your thoughts on Kane?
Oh, I had to look. I had to look because I had to pull that pictures up to make sure I'm matching the right person real quick. Um, he Kane got a little too comfortable. I understand that he had a suit on and everything, but just going around touching these random what you perceive to be like eggs or whatever he thought was there, he should not have been like fucking with any of that. Like it's like I understand, um, we're trying to figure out where we're at, what we're doing for science. But at a certain point, it's like we don't know what we're dealing with, and with all the shit that we have on board, I'm sure there's some other way that they could have tried to contain whatever was there. Now, granted, with our knowledge of what the like face hugger and stuff could do with like the acid and stuff, it probably would have got free or whatever they put it in. But he probably may not have died as horrific as he did if he went about like trying to explore or see what was there in that manner, just like touching shit.
The small moments that we got with them as a group, like he fit in really well. They all had like a really good like vibe or whatever, and
Yeah,
he just got killed, and it's just, oh no. And then his death was so violent and painful, like Jesus Christ. Like I couldn't. But what are your thoughts on Parker? I still think Parker should never died. I guess he's supposed to be the quote unquote muscle or like the engineer or something, but
hmm
I don't know. He lasted longer than I thought he was,
yeah,
and he shouldn't have died. But that's just me. What are your thoughts on Parker?
yeah. I kind of thought the same, and it his character like gives the energy that he probably wasn't gonna die just because of like how headstrong he kind of was, and like he was ready for whatever. But and I really feel like if he didn't have to, if he wasn't in that situation specifically with Lambert, he wouldn't have died. But because he was in that specific situation, that got him killed, and I will always hate that. So don't I don't think he should have died. I don't believe that he would have died given the circumstances of what he had to deal with Lambert. But outside of that, like I thought his character was cool, and he was like he was kind of one of those people that he needed because he knew like the ins and out of most of the ship and everything because he was working in like the underlings of the ship with I forget his name. I believe it was Barrett. Yeah, he was working like with like in all the other parts of the ship with Brett. So like he actually was one that was like a person that was needed. And also when it was time to get the fuck out, and he was like, "Let's set this like burn this bitch up, set it ablaze." I'm like, I'm right there with you. Let's do it.
Because he was definitely making smart decisions that he definitely could have lived, and again, he was just ended up being saddled with the wrong person.
hmm
And let me keep that to myself. It was the '70s. It was a different time.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on Lambert? I felt like from the moment the chest burst, she was useless. She just sat and whined and cried, and then that's how she died. She added nothing to the team. Like once the shit hit the fan, she cried and shit herself. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts on Lambert?
I pretty much agree. And it's like it's like for us looking at these characters as a movie, it's like, girl, like come on now, like pick your boots up. Like we gotta go. Like we gotta get out. I understand. But also if I'm in her situation, I'll probably be useless after that chest burst too. I'm be honest with you.
Oh, like 100%. I want to think I'd be like Parker or Ripley, but I would probably most definitely be Lambert.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And as immediately after like the chest burst happened, I'm going to the like head of the ship where the fuck I'm forgetting the name of it. I'm going to the head of the ship where the what are the damn escape pods are, where they're like Ripley got away in. I'm
The
in there.
shuttle.
Yeah, I'm in the shuttle the whole time. I'm not leaving. I'm like, we out. I don't care. I'm ready to go. I'm waiting here until y'all get through, or whoever don't come back after X amount of time. I'm leaving. Like when she was like, "Let's draw straw."
Honestly,
I'm
and
with
I
you, girls.
wouldn't
We
let
out.
you.
But as the movie though, as in
What do
context
you?
of the movie,
Oh, go ahead.
she wasn't as useful as she could have been.
Being helpful, like at the very least, Parker could have survived.
Hmm.
Hell, they both could have survived if she actually did something, but she did nothing, and that's annoying as fuck
She
to me.
locked
Like
in the wrong way.
very much so, and it pissed me off the entire time I was watching it. Just like, oh. But you want to know someone who didn't cry? Ripley. What are your thoughts on Ripley?
That's my bitch. She was about business the entire time. Like if they had listened to her from the beginning, they probably wouldn't. None of that would probably even happen. She would have saved the crew because she told them from the beginning when they were even trying to bring Kane back on the board or back aboard. Like, no, you guys know the protocol, and that's not what we're doing. And I really feel like if the tables were turned and let's say like that was her asking like what was the what was his name? I'm blanking for a second. If it was Dallas, like if he was on board and the rest of them were off, like getting them, and they tried to come back, I feel like I don't know. I feel like he would have tried to stick to like the protocol or whatever. But just because it was him outside,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, but yeah, just because it was him and like the other one and like Kane and Ash out there, like he's like, oh no, we got to get back on, like blah 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 blah. And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing here. And obviously, she was standing on business, but they pushed her, and then also like Ash like used this code and stuff anyway, and was like bypassing her either way. So it just wasn't. It wasn't the cards weren't dealt good in her favor, and plus. I was about to say it was the 70s, but it was 2037. They was probably treating women bad still, so they weren't even trying to listen to her. Um,
But like she was the only one who was
thinking
like
logically.
thinking logically and thinking professionally. Like they were all emotional. Like, oh, it's us. It's Kane. No, we're a crew. We're a family. We gotta bring him back in. But she was like, no, this there are protocols for a reason.
Mhm.
And the whole movie proves that she was right to be like the fucking protocols. The fucking protocols. We can't do this. Like she was 100% right the entire time, and they didn't listen to her, and they all died because of it.
That's their fault. Fuck, like, bruh, fuck all of them. I'm sorry. Like, because I just watched this so recently, it pisses me off thinking about it. Because it's like, bro,
Who
like,
you telling? It's
we
like
could have
literally y'all
been,
could have survived.
yeah. But outside of, like, that whole thing, Ripley was a very, like, good character. And be, it just goes to show like because she wasn't even like the main billing of this movie, but it just goes to show like how good like Sigourney Weaver like did as this character that she
That
played
was a
Ripley.
surprise coming back to this one and like doing the research and stuff on it.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, Sigourney is not like main billing. She's not the first star. But I think who played Dallas is.
Hmm.
He was main billing. Shit, the guy who played Parker was like second billing because he was in a James Bond. That's Yvette Dakota. Like he was in a James Bond movie. He was like known. Like pretty much everyone in this movie was had some kind of acclaim. They had more acclaim than Sigourney did, but this is the movie that made Sigourney Weaver, and that's all because of her performance. Like she was badass as Ripley.
Yeah, No, yeah, definitely, and it it just goes to show like how good the performance was. Because like, to be fair, nobody talks about any of the other actors from this movie besides her.
I mean, John Hurt, he's more talked about because of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
John Hurt played King.
No, I know that, but I don't remember who he
Uh,
played in Lord of the Rings. I'll be honest with you.
Me either, but he was also in Being the Devil. But like he's known for other things. But when you think of certain like franchises, even when you think of like when you think of Harry Potter, you don't think of John Hurt. Yeah, he's the one who gave Harry Potter his wand, but it's like you think of Harry Potter. But when you think of Alien, you think that's fucking Sigourney Weaver. Like this is
Hmm.
the franchise. Like this franchise made Sigourney Weaver, and Sigourney Weaver kept it alive for like three more movies. So she's amazing. She did that.
Yeah, and she's our alien final girl.
Yes, and she was amazing. Now, let's talk about Ash. What are your thoughts on Ash?
It was funny. Like, obviously, I still got smoke for Ash, like, because of all that. But the the Android reveal, as we mentioned earlier, is just so iconic. Like, not like it's making me not hate the character, but it's just like, damn, that. And it, honestly, when you think back on it, like, it makes sense because of how, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, emotionless that kind of Ash came off. Now, he definitely played into the emotions of like some of the characters, like especially when it came to like Kane and trying to keep him on board. But I guess that was just kind of passed off like this android as being like a real person more per se, so that the crew wouldn't think much of it. But once the actual reveal happened of Ash and that we find out that Ash is an android, it puts more into perspective of like the thought process behind Ash and like why they weren't as concerned with the rest of them and really were only just thinking about, oh, what is like basically Ash's whole thing was, what can I do to make sure that this specimen gets to wherever we're going? And it wasn't ever, how can we isolate it, do X, Y, and Z to help the crew. It was just the alien and the science behind it, and that was all that it was like that Ash cared about. And he was portrayed like really well by the actor that did it, because especially once you get the turn, like, and when he attacks Ripley, and just how like cold and emotionless he is, like in that scene, it came off really good.
Yeah, the Android reveal still gets me because, like, rewatching it, you pick up on certain cues, like, okay, he was your last minute replacement for the other science officer. He hasn't really been clicking. He's disobeying orders. He's opening the hatch. It's like something's not right with this character, but you're just led to believe like he's doing all this in the name of science. And honestly, if it ended up being like he's just doing this in the name of science, like I would have been okay with that. But the reveal is like, oh, he's an android. He's still doing this in the name of science, but he's a fucking robot. So he doesn't really care about what's happening to the humans because it won't affect him. So I don't know. It is just great. But what are your thoughts on the xenomorph? Which actually we don't even know that what the name of the alien race is in this movie, but we do come to find out that they're called xenomorphs. What are your thoughts on the alien this time around?
The all right, the xenomorph, like the, it's just, I was about to say it's just iconic, but it is like the design of the xenomorph is, you just know what that is now. Like it's just so ingrained in like pop culture that like damn near like everybody knows what a xenomorph is or what it came from, especially with how um cross like or multimedia the Alien franchise is, like because it's in video games, it's in a lot of other stuff as well. So it's like one of those things that even if you haven't seen the movies, you probably have seen a xenomorph, and like the design is just that like iconic and intriguing to see. And when you when you see it in a movie, like obviously they don't show it as much as we do in like other movies we do to like how it was like filmed and stuff and what the limitations were with the practicality of like the suit and everything. So but the way that they did go about filming it made it even scarier, like seeing it from like those up close angles and um the mouthpiece and everything and how it was like attacking, and also just the fact that it like grew from the specimen that was in Kane's, like that came out of Kane's stomach.
Yeah, that's like a crazy way to begin. And I agree with you. The xenomorph design, all of it is super iconic, and it's played. Like there's an actor in that too. I think this is like the one of the only times where um the alien is played by like someone in a suit, and it works for all the scenes. It really works that it's all practical and it's a man in a suit because I don't know, it would have taken away if they tried to do anything else with it, especially during that time.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's very iconic because you have aliens in the Mortal Kombat video games, but then there's also several alien video games, and you see the alien in like Family Guy skits, and it's just a part of pop culture. So like seeing a xenomorph in the first time, and it's like as it was conceptualized is amazing, and it was killing people. It was kicking asses. Sadly, it killed everybody that we liked, but it did its job. And starting from being in the egg to hopping on somebody's face and then bursting out of the chest, that's all crazy. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I like the xenomorph. Well, with that, let's move on to one of my favorite parts of this podcast. Juan, can you give the people the behind the scenes info and facts?
Yes, I can. So, Alien had a budget of $11 million and it brought in a box office of 184.7 million. Some interesting facts. The chestburster sequence involved impressive practical effects in order to create the shock and horror Ridley Scott wanted, as he purposely left some of the cast in the dark about what was coming. The script said that something would come out of Kane's chest, but other than John Hurt, none of the cast members knew any more than that. They weren't expecting it to be graphic, so Lambert's look of horror when she sprayed with blood was actress Veronica Cartwright's real reaction. And Sigourney Weaver, who played Ripley, said she thought John Hurt might actually be dying, and she only stayed in character because nobody shouted cut. In the original script, the eggs were found in an ancient pyramid-like structure on the planet. This was written out by the producers who replaced it with the military bunker. When Scott came in, he liked the ancient civilization idea and changed it back. So what that means is that the chamber with the alien eggs isn't actually on the alien spaceship, it's in the ancient structure, and the alien ship is crashed on top of it. The movie was originally scripted to end with Ripley escaping to the Nostromo in her shuttle and the alien dying on board the Nostromo. Sir Ridley Scott thought this ending was way too simplistic, so he negotiated with the studio for an additional $500,000 budget and a week of filming to add a fourth act to the movie. Showing how the alien had stowed away aboard the shuttle, Scott initially envisioned a very dark ending where Ripley tries to flush the alien out, but the creature climbs back into the shuttle. The vast majority of this movie was filmed using a handheld camera, and initially, Ripley's character, portrayed by Sigourney Weaver, was intended for Meryl Streep. Some critics' reactions. The film currently sits at a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. A review from Time Out said the film was An empty bag of tricks whose production values and expensive trickery cannot disguise imaginative poverty. That's crazy. Damn, they did not like it. Critics Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert gave the film 2 yes votes. Ebert called it one of the scariest old-fashioned space operas I can remember. Siskel agreed that it was scary, but said it was basically a haunted house film set in a spaceship and was not the greatest science fiction film ever made. The film currently is on. National Review praised the cast of Alien, particularly Sigourney Weaver, and the film's visual values.
Well, enough about them. What about us? Do we cash or pass Alien? Tawan.
Very much cash Alien. This is one of those movies that is just so ingrained in like the cultural zeitgeist, and people can't. Well, I would say like people in Hollywood like can't stop wanting to like bring this franchise back just due to like how iconic it is and where you can kind of go with the story of it and bring it back to Xenomorphs, and people just I would say generally just like the franchise for the most part, and this one in particular still holds up. It was released in 1979. Like that was a while. That was a very while ago at this point, and the film still holds up. It's getting re-releases. Is re-releases in theaters. We're getting a newer one coming this year, and it kickstarted like all of this. What we got to like now at this point, I think Sigourney Weaver was like great in this role. She was like very headstrong character, which for at least at the time of like women, like they weren't seen as like that in like film a lot. So the fact that we like got that was really good, and I like that they went with having her as like our quote unquote like final girl in the film instead of where any other direction that they could have took it. So holds up very good. Practical effects look great in the movie. Music is great. Direction is really good, and I'm glad we had this franchise. So definitely gets a cash from me.
This is also a cash for me. I love this movie. I agree with everything that Tuan said. It's iconic. It's a classic. It still stands up. Even if you've seen this movie several times, like I have, there are still scenes that still get you, like the chest burster scene, the android reveal scene, all still pretty amazing. Even if you already seen it and know that it's coming. Um, and it kicked off a great franchise, and I know where some of the movies are going to lead, and despite that, like this is a good movie, and it has a great legacy, and it's 100% cash. But will aliens be cashed? Join us next week as we get together and we review Aliens. Aliens, the sequel, which all they did was just add an S. Lazy or inventive? Join us next week to find out. Good night. that, but they kind of dropped a line that S isn't the normal science.
If you like this episode, please check out the Haddonfield Horror podcast from big series like Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, or our one-off reviews like The Blackening and Hereditary. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the hosts post updates and mini reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms and YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The Haddonfield Horror podcast is produced by Mark Smart,
Maria Perez,
Twan Griffin, and Elian Cordova. Themed by Lethal Injection and edited by Mark Smart.
The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?